Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Haven't posted in a little bit, I've been focusing on my other channel, but I've also been doing a lot of research. You'll notice the plain background, because I think I've identified exactly what sort of an economy we're into. And it's the worst economy of all. It's called stagflation. Now, stagflation is a portmanteau of stagnation and inflation. And yes, this is because of the pandemic. We'll be dealing with these effects probably for 5 to 10 years, maybe longer. Let me break it down for you. Remember all those cargo ships that built up at the various ports, like outside of Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey, Halifax, etc., etc.? There's still lineups there. And there's going to be for a long time. You see, ports are gigantic areas with specialized equipment. I worked in the container industry for a long time. When I say I worked in logistics, that's what I did for part of the time. And these ports, when you go into them, I'm sure you've seen the pictures of those gigantic ships with all the containers stacked one on top of the other. It looks like they're going to tip over, and they do a fantastic job of stacking these things. Well, there's usually only a couple of cranes that can offload a certain number of ships at any given time. And the ports only have so much space to store containers. It's an enormous amount of containers, I'll grant you, like thousands or even tens of thousands, but they don't like to hold on to them for long. They'd rather get the stuff out of there, because if your stuff sits there for more than a couple days, you get charged storage fees. And these storage fees add up very quickly for a company. If you have 20, 30 containers come in and you only have 10 drivers, yeah, you'd better figure out a way to get those other 10, 15 containers picked up, because each container is going to get roughly a $200 to $500 a day storage charge slapped onto it. You can see where the problem comes. Now, that cost needs to be built into the contract somewhere. You can't directly charge a customer for it. Can you imagine that? You order a pizza, it shows up a day later, and then they give you an extra bill on top of that? No, you can't structure a contract like that. You'd be laughed out of the building. But you do have to build that in when you come up to your next contract and say, okay, we got to raise our rates, 5%, whatever it is, to cover all the times in the past year that we were late. That's how businesses stay employed. Now that's just getting the container off the ship and onto the truck and going towards wherever it's going. The prices involved in that, that's a whole area of expertise. I'm not going to get into that. But let's look at that very concept. The ships are still not able to get in to the ports. I don't know whether the steamships or the ports are the ones hit with the storage fees of the container ships sitting offshore, but there's an economic fine there. And whether there's a pandemic, whether there's a fire, whether you name it, there's 10,000 reasons, very good reasons, for a port to have difficulty. The crane breaks down, it puts them behind. And they do have a little bit of safety factor built in there. Because as much as modern industry isn't a just-in-time model, they do have a little bit of safety built in, because if you don't, you're a little bit of a moron. And believe me, I have a couple decades of experience balancing that knife's edge between having just a little more capacity than you need to get the job done, but not so much that it's draining your bottom line. So, this cargo is sitting offshore, and before it reaches you or your job site or whatever, it's already accruing fees. Then, when the trucks get a hold of it, they take it to a storage depot where it's either sorted or it's getting ready for transit to its final destination. Again, this is a huge possibility for fees, and it's something that trucking companies try to avoid. But it happens. Now keep in mind, nothing has happened with this product yet. Hence the background, completely blank. Nothing has happened productive, but fees are owing on it. Someone's got to subsidize this product to make sure it can be used, whether it's electronics in a convenience store or a job site. And all sorts of things come from overseas. Auto parts, production stuff. Transformers is a very big one. No, I'm not talking Autobots and Decepticons. I mean proper electrical transformers going to job sites. Steel, even though we have a pretty robust steel industry in North America, we still get a fair amount from overseas. The whole idea of a free trade agreement means that somebody from overseas, generally Asia, if you smell what Silverlight is cooking, can bid for the same contract and with their government subsidies can win that contract. So what we wind up with is people in stores not only waiting for the latest iPhone XXX, triple X squared, whatever the heck they're onto, but people on job sites waiting for steel. Lumber we're mostly self-sufficient in, but we still get some in from overseas. But transformers, electronics, stuff so that they can install an electrical system and a grid so that a new building can be built, whether it be for a factory, whether it be for an apartment building, or whether it be for houses. Houses, factories, and all those have completion dates. When you sign up, you guarantee you're going to complete the job by day X. Let's say September 22nd. So you're sitting here in the middle of May, waiting for your steel shipment to arrive, whether it's girders or whatever the heck it is, and you're told that it's not going to be for another month, which is quite possible. You can't build that into your present contract, but you still need to charge for it. So your next contract you negotiate, you have to build that fee in a sneaky kind of way. You don't directly come out and say, I'm building this fee into our contract. You say, okay, due to cost of living, due to transportation issues, due to this, that, the other thing, my base price for this will be X $1,000. Again, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened to this, but there's already potentially hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in charges owing for this blank slate. So finally, what do we do with the workers? The truck drivers who are waiting for their containers to be offloaded. The person at the construction site waiting for material to be delivered. Sucks to be them. Hate to say this, but no work, go home. Then they're not getting paid. So not only do we have this huge amount of back fees being owed, we also have a problem where people are not getting the hours or the pay that they deserve because companies are in this reactive mode trying to figure out how to deal with this. I'm not going to call it a new paradigm, but I am going to say a static paradigm where everything is on back order and nobody has anything. Stagflation, stagnant inflation. We can go forward. We can recover from this. But we spent the last 30 years doing nothing but trimming the fat. Right-sizing, downsizing, cost-cutting, you name it, they've had all the buzzwords. Enhancing profitability. We've heard it all before. And this is where it comes to bite us in the rear end. And it does this almost every time. People get very comfortable and they think the future is always going to be better. And most of the time it is. It's been realistically almost 100 years since we've had a serious downturn. Yes, 2008 happened, the mid-1980s happened. I'm not saying that those weren't downturns, but nothing as major as this. And we were already kind of nosediving in before the pandemic hit us. So it's nothing sudden, it's nothing surprising, but at the same notion, nobody was ready for it. The stimulus checks and everything are now all gone. Well, no, actually, they were spent before they got here. You see, those stimulus programs and tax credits that the government was offering business, yeah, that'll come off the next year's tax return. So this year, the various businesses that were able to take advantage of the programs are getting paid out for what they laid out in 2021. In 2023, they would get what they would get for this year, but everything's been canceled. It's not there anymore. So hopefully, a lot of companies manage their money very well. But this is going to affect those medium-sized businesses. Small-sized businesses are more agile. The big ones have their ways of weathering the storm, whether it's they micromanage their foreign currency, whether they've locked in contracts long term at a super low rate. It's the medium-sized ones that are in the most trouble. And that's why I can see a whole lot of people getting squeezed out of their jobs, not because their work isn't necessary, but because the next 5 to 10 years, right up to 2030, maybe even 2032, we're going to be digging ourselves out of the pit that we got dug into since 2020. The prices are still going to go up. The wages aren't. Or if you're exceedingly lucky and you work for one of those unicorn companies that just so happens to be ahead of the curve and does everything perfectly, you might get a cost of living increase, 3 to 5%. Or maybe you're a fantastic salesman and you hit all your quotas, you're ahead of the game every month, in which case, God bless you. I got nothing but respect for that. Not my talent, but I appreciate people that have it. Other than that, we're staring at a very boring wall for the next few years. If you have a condo or house or even a cottage, you're probably very lucky. Hold on to it. Look for long-term stability. Don't look for get-rich-quick schemes. Look for ways to protect your present wealth. The big money is out there, but I'm not seeing a paradigm shift coming anytime soon. YouTube is still YouTube. Google is still Google. If you're one of the people lucky enough that spots a hole in the market, by all means, fill that hole. But other than that, we have a boring wall to look at for the next 5 to 10 years. And then we start hitting into 2030, which that's a whole other story. I covered it before, but that's enough for now. So remember, stagflation. It's here. It's not going away. Get used to it. Oh, and of course, the government is going to start raising interest rates from the central banks because that will always stabilize the problem. Haven't quite. Well, no, I know how it works, and maybe I'll detail it another time, but really it doesn't work. It's like giving your kid chocolate so that way they won't overeat. It's one of those crazy things, but we'll do that in another episode. Until then, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please hit like, share, subscribe. Please, if you want to support the channel, buy one of the books in the link listed below in the comments. And we hope you have a fantastic day.